Chapter 1. Shadows Take Form. The snow fell in silent sheets, muffling the crunch of boots on frozen ground. It was 1963, and the Arctic wind carried more than just ice. He carried secrets. Somewhere in the vast, unbroken white, a man moved unseen. His name was never spoken aloud in the files, only a code. Cipher 7. The Soviet outpost at SamEnrico was a speck on the map, a scientific station by day, a listening post by night. The CIA had been watching for months. Satellite images showed trucks arriving at odd hours. Radio traffic spiked at midnight. And then there were the whisperous rumors of a new weapon, something that could turn the tide of the Cold War. Cipher 7 had been chosen for this because he knew how to disappear. He had spent years in the shadows, learning the art of silence. His accent was flawless, his documents impeccable. He was a ghost before he ever set foot in the Arctic. The first test came at the checkpoint. A guard, bundled in a thick fur coat, squinted through the snow. "You're late," he muttered in Russian. Cipher 7 didn't flinch. "The storm delayed the supply run," he replied, his voice steady. The guard waved him through. Inside, the station was a maze of metal corridors, the air thick with the scent of diesel and unwashed bodies. Scientists moved like shadows, their faces drawn with exhaustion. No one looked twice at the new technician. No one ever did. But the real work began at night. The archives were locked, but not well enough. A few minutes with a lockpick and the door swung open. Inside, rows of filing cabinets stood like silent sentinels. Cipher 7 moved quickly, his gloved hands flipping through documents. Most were mundane and the reports supply logs. But then he found it. A single folder marked only with a red stamp, Zarya. Inside were blueprints, schematics for something called Project Aurora, a device that could disrupt radar, blind satellites, render entire fleets invisible. The Soviets were testing it here, in the Arctic, where the world wouldn't notice. Cipher 7's pulse quickened. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a game changer. But he wasn't alone. A floorboard creaked behind him. He turned just in time to see the barrel of a pistol. "Who are you?" The voice was cold, accented. A man in a black uniform stood in the doorway, his eyes sharp. Cipher 7 didn't hesitate. He lunged, knocking the gun aside. The two men grappled in the dim light, their breaths ragged. A struggle for silence. No shots fired, no alarms raced. Just a desperate, deadly dance of spies. The gun clattered to the floor. Cipher 7 twisted, driving his elbow into his attacker's ribs. The man gasped, then went limp. He didn't have time to check if he was dead. Grabbing the Zarya folder, he slipped into the darkness. The station was waking up now, voices echoing down the halls. He had to move. The escape route was simple. A maintenance tunnel leading to the perimeter. But the snow had deepened, the wind howling like a warning. He pressed on, the folder tucked inside his coat. Somewhere behind him, sirens wailed. The extraction point was a mile away. A small plane waiting in the frozen wilderness. But the snow was too thick, the visibility too poor. The pilot shook his head. "We can't risk it." Cipher 7 didn't argue. He handed over the folder. "Get this to Langley." Now, the pilot hesitated, then nodded. The plane roared to life, lifting into the storm. Cipher 7 turned back toward the station. He had one last job to do. The Zarya device was in a secure bunker, guarded by armed men. But he had studied the blueprints. He knew the weak points. A single explosion, just enough to collapse the tunnel, trapped the guards inside. The device would be lost, buried under tons of ice. As the bunker crumbled, Cipher 7 vanished into the storm. Back in Washington, the folder arrived at Langley. Analysts pored over the documents, their faces grim. Project Aurora was real. And the Soviets were closer than anyone had thought. The Cold War had just gotten colder. But this was only the beginning. The shadows were taking form.